Ever since the Game Master updated and gave Mew 14 different fast moves and 25 different charge moves, people have been wondering, what's Mew's best moveset? I will give you a spoiler right now. The conclusion of all of my research is that Mew's best universal moveset is Shadow Claw plus Ice Beam. But there is so much that goes into what determines which moveset is good for Mew that depending on what you want to personally use your Mew for, or what you're going to use your Mew for, may alter, which charge move you value. I will say that Shadow Claw is almost indisputably the best fast move, so no real getting around that, right? So in this video, I'm going to go over Mew's best rating matchups, since that is probably the most important stuff in the current meta. The second video I'm coming out with on Sunday, hopefully, is Mew's best gymming movesets, looking at Mew's movesets like more in a vacuum and how it stands out from other gym cleaners. So this one, Raid Focus. One fight that Mew stands out in is against Focus Blast Mewtwo. Mew is pretty decent against all non-Shadow Ball Mewtwo sets, but because Tyranitar is so dominant against every moveset except Focus Blast, it's kind of nebulous to look into them. But against the Focus Blast set, the one set that Tyranitar can't really tolerate well, Mew does stand out pretty well. It has a TDO, a total damage output, that is higher than all other Pokemon aside from Mewtwo itself and Lugia. Compared to Lugia, who's the main tank for this fight, Mew does have a higher DPS than it. So, pretty good. The best moveset to use against Mewtwo with Mew is Shadow Claw Dark Pulse. After Shadow Claw and Dark Pulse, basically Shadow Claw plus most charge moves is going to be fine. Snarl plus Dark Pulse also stands out. Here you can see on a graph kind of where the chips fall between the Shadow Claw, Dark Pulse, and the other movesets. So like Shadow Claw Wild Charge, Shadow Claw Blizzard, basically the same as Snarl Dark Pulse, with Dazzling Gleam, Dragon Claw, and Ice Beam kind of being like a third tier kind of move. Shadow Claw has a breakpoint at level 36.5. Prior to that breakpoint, Dark Pulse stands out a bit more, where it's more like most fast moves with Dark Pulse. And the reason why is because when Shadow Claw is declawed like that, you're getting way less DPS from your Shadow Claw. The Dark Pulse is a 2-bar charge move that's getting super effective damage in, so it makes it a little bit more important there. But if you cross the threshold, you get to that 36.5 breakpoint, Shadow Claw is going to be the main source of damage against Mewtwo. All Mews can hit that level 36.5 breakpoint, so if you've got like a 10 IV Mew, you do have to power up a bit more, but you will hit that breakpoint eventually. The next raids that Mew stands out pretty well in is against the Latios and Latias raids. I'm going to talk about them the same because they're basically the same fight, and I'm not going to go into it in a lot of details. If you want details specific to those two fights, you can check out my Latios and Latias content, also linked below. The TLDR of Mew in those fights is that Mew isn't going to be better than the dragons, and Mew likely isn't going to be better than Tyranitar. But if you're not swagging with dragons or Tyranitar, then Mew is quite possibly your best sort of like lesser pick, right? Fill in the gaps in your team. Maybe if you're rolling with like a B team, your team faints too fast, then rolling out with Mew in squad number 2, probably a good idea. While Mew is a little bit more lax in this fight compared to the better Pokemon, it's also pretty lax in what moves you can run. Rather than being restricted to one fast move or one charge move being extra good, Shadow Claw and Dragon Tail perform basically the same at all levels after you hit the most relevant breakpoints, right? And Ice Beam, Blizzard, and Dazzling Gleam all perform basically the same. Dragon Claw performs really well too, a little bit worse, and then Dark Pulse, kind of reaching down in the barrel a little bit. Here's a focus graph of Mew's movesets against Latios. Here you can pretty much tell that all of them are roughly the same. Now this graph is really zoomed in on the movesets, so the differences might look really large, but in practice, a lot of them are basically the same. You're only really going to feel a notable drop in performance, maybe with the Dragon Claw, and probably definitely with the Dark Pulse, but overall, it's really not that big of a deal. So if you want to use your Mew to fight against the Lati raids, using any of these movesets will be fine. Dialing it back a little bit, I did say that, any IV, as long as you're hitting the breakpoints, is going to be fine. Against the Latias raid specifically, kinda lame, but it does have a level 40 breakpoint on Shadow Claw, right? So you need a 15 attack IV Mew at level 40 for Latios to hit this breakpoint. And it's not that big of a deal if you don't have one. I don't have one. It kind of sucks that it is a breakpoint that's high up like that, and this is the only situation I've identified where a 10-10-10 IV Mew can't be equal to a perfect Mew, so don't sweat it too much. Just email Niantic support and be like, bottle caps when, you know? Hopefully they'll let us fix our IVs someday. Now we're going to get into some raids that we don't have right now. The raid that Mew stands out the most in fact, Mew's greatest matchup is actually against the Rayquaza raid. The reason for this is that the ice types in Pokemon Go right now are pretty poor. Mew has a higher attack stat and a higher CP overall compared to all ice types. So given how like the damage formulas work in the game, its ice attacks and its performance as a ice type is on par, if not better, than most ice-type Pokemon. Pulling up these results against Rayquaza from Pokebattler, you can see that Mew basically has the same TDO, roughly the same DPS as Lapras. One thing that you will remember from the Rayquaza fight, though, is Rayquaza has Ancient Power. So against the Ancient Power set, Mew's not weak. It's not getting torn to shreds like Articuno is here. If Rayquaza returns, you'll probably want to bring out your Mew for it. The best moveset for taking on Rayquaza is going to be Frost Breath with Ice Beam or Blizzard. But using Dragon Tail with Ice Beam or Blizzard is going to be just fine. If you're using an alternative fast move, such as that popular Shadow Claw, right, then using Ice Beam is going to be much more preferable, because you're going to want to use that Ice type damage sooner than later. Unlike the Lati twins, Rayquaza is a Dragon Flying type, so it has that doubled up Ice type weakness. So Ice is pretty important for taking on Rayquaza. Another raid that Mew stands out in is against Lugia. Now I wouldn't say that this is a super great matchup for Mew, because its performance is more like a tank option, sort of like Kyogre. In fact, its overall performance overlaps with Kyogre, which is like the low DPS, high TDO kind of Pokemon. When compared directly to Kyogre, Kyogre is going to have a better performance against Hydro Pump, where Mew is going to have a better performance against the Future Sight attack. This is kind of a problem for Mew in this fight, because its biggest competition is going to be with Tyranitar, who's doing the fight much better, able to have the immunity tier resistance to Future Sight, and also resists the Sky attack. So I'd say overall Mew's sort of like a budget sort of gap filler if you don't have better picks for the Lugia fight, should it return. But this is a fight that Mew's identified as being pretty good in. The best moveset for Mew in this fight is Shadow Claw with Wild Charge. Wild Charge is a super OP kind of charge move, so very powerful. Using the Shadow Claw Wild Charge is also really good against the Mewtwo fight I talked about earlier. So Shadow Claw with Wild Charge, best set here. But using Shadow Claw with Blizzard or Ice Beam or Thunderbolt, those are all respectable options. You could even use Rock Slide or Stone Edge. So pretty lax on the Lugia, but Lugia isn't really one of Mew's best matchups. It's just one that Mew does stand out in a little bit. One really cool raid that Mew does stand out in is against Blizzard Kyogre. If you remember, Blizzard Kyogre is the hardest raid boss in all of Pokemon Go right now. It's fortunately returned back to the depths of the sea. Hopefully it won't rear its ugly head again for time to come. But if it does, Mew is going to be one of the better options against the Blizzard set specifically. If you remember from my Kyogre content, the Pokemon that would stand out against the Blizzard fight were really the Pokemon that could tolerate a certain number of fast moves and a Blizzard. For example, Raikou could tank up to 5 waterfalls and survive 1 Blizzard with at least 1 HP left at level 37.5. What made Raikou super supreme at level 31.5 is that's where it met its bulk point for 4. The average amount of fast moves that a bigger raid boss is going to do before unleashing a single bar charge move is about 3 to 4, kind of closer to 4, right, on average. So Pokemon that could meet that would be a more tanky, survivable, and all-around better option against Blizzard Kyogre. Mewtwo was another good option in that fight, being able to hit the 4 fast move bulk point at level 35.5. Groudon stood out at level 34.5, being able to cross the bare minimum of 3 fast moves. Latios, with its Solar Beam at level 38.5, can also hit that bare minimum bulk point of 3 fast moves at level 38.5. I think I just repeated myself. Ho-Oh was one of the tanky all-stars of that fight, being able to tank 7 fast moves and 1 Blizzard at level 40. That means that at that higher tier bulk point, hitting that 7, it would most likely be able to feint on a second Blizzard, which is kind of better for the team overall, depending on how you look at bulk point usage. Mew is pretty great. It can survive 6 fast moves and 1 Blizzard at level 36. Another cool thing about this level 36 bulk point is that a 10-10-10 Mew can meet that at level 39. Ho-Oh can only hit that higher tier, 7 fast move bulk point at level 40 with perfect IVs. So if you're not maxing out your Ho-Oh, or if your Ho-Oh isn't perfect, then it's going to be as good of a Mew as far as its tankiness goes in the Blizzard Kyogre fight. I know that Blizzard Kyogre isn't in rotation right now, but if it ever returns, Mew is actually one of the better options in that fight. If you're wondering what the best moveset is, it's going to be Charge Beam with either Grass Knot or Wild Charge. Grass Knot and Wild Charge have the same stats, so they're always going to be kind of parallel with each other if they're having the same level of effectiveness. So both really good. After Charge Beam with them though, like if you want a different fast move, all fast moves that aren't resisted by Kyogre basically homogenize, right? Because the main damage that you're getting is going to be those charge moves then. So, and Charge Beam gets you to the charge moves that much quicker. So if you're looking for like an adjunct not using Charge Beam move, then Shadow Claw, right? If you average the performance of all these different rating movesets in reference to their best Mew moveset, which I did here in this spreadsheet, then you can see that overall, the best movesets for Mew against all these different raids is going to be Shadow Claw with either Ice Beam or Wild Charge. If you reduce these raid matchups to the raids that we're currently experiencing, which is Latios, Latias, and Mewtwo, then it looks like the better raiding movesets are going to be Shadow Claw with either Dark Pulse or Blizzard. The reason why Dark Pulse and Blizzard stand up and Ice Beam kind of sits down is because against Mewtwo, it's kind of a third tier move. For the Lati twins, Dark Pulse is like a second tier kind of move. So when you average it together, the Blizzard and the Dark Pulse, they're on equal footing, where the Ice Beam is kind of slightly behind. Looking at these fights a little bit closer, Dazzling Gleam is also sort of like a second tier move for all 3 of these raids overall. Now, if you're curious how I get from this point to finding out that the universal best moveset overall for Mew is Shadow Claw Ice Beam, then subscribe to SwagTips. I hope to have the video up on Sunday where I go over the moves in a vacuum and Mew's best gymming moveset, right? And going through that information, it makes it pretty clear how I came to the conclusion of Shadow Claw Ice Beam. So if you're interested in that, then yeah, subscribe to the Swag Man. If you have any questions about this, or you want me to look at anything else in particular with Pokemon Go, then comment below. Let me know what's up. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. SwagTips. By the way, if you want to see Mew in action, I suggest checking out PokeAK. He's got a lot of videos up where he's using Mew in different raids and gym battling scenarios, and he changes up the movesets a lot, so kind of interesting. I'd be doing some Mew stuff myself, but I only have like 60 rare candy and so many charge TMs, so a little bit, I got my limitations here. But yeah, PokeAK, I noticed that he has a lot of stuff for Mew up, so yeah, check him out.